So that's now recording. So welcome, Kerry and Norts. We're going to start a little bit earlier today on the Sunday sessions. We are welcoming Tiny Giant. I won't introduce too heavily because I think the guys should do it themselves. But these guys are, well, I know Kerry from my days down in Bristol and invited the guys to talk to us about AI, which is absolutely something that is emerging and I don't know much about, so I'm excited for this talk. They are doing some incredible creative work using technology, as it says on the screen. But yeah, I'll let them discuss this in their talk now. So welcome, guys.
Hello. Hello, esteemed gatherers of the York Design Week Sunday sessions. Got to say, come on, bright young things. That made me laugh. You know what I mean? I'm the wrong side of 50, but it's nice. It's nice to be thought of in that way, isn't it? If nothing else, Kerry still, of course, is still in the demographic of a bright young thing, I would say. But anyway, what I will say to you, welcome everybody. Thanks for that, Owen. Very nice. You saw those nice words about us. We have we calculated just before we came on here. We've got 70 slides actually, which means we're going to move at an extreme speed. So that's what we'll do. It's going to be, we're talking about emerging technology. We're going to talk about creative AI. We're going to touch on AR. There's a chat facility, isn't there, Owen?
Yeah.
So boom.
We've already had a question which Luke's kindly asked about the AI cat, but I think it's because he's excited. So
well, that's cool. That is cool. It's going to
It's coming.
I thought he was going to say, what is that OAP doing in Bright Young Things? That'd be my first question. Right, so we're going to rattle on. Yeah, we'll just get going and see where we are. Right, so let me get the deck up and running. Right, just to give you a little heads up, I won't spend long. It's like they say in business, isn't it? You should try and describe yourself in one sentence. I won't read it out like Chris Whitty does because you can read it yourselves. But that's what we're about: pioneering brands, blah blah blah, new media tech, and we kind of fall into the world of creative AI. But what I would say about myself and Kerry, just if you're all thinking about a career pivot or something, we come from we both come from advertising background. We're both copywriters by kind of how we first got into the business, people that ask us to write ads. And it's purely to do with the fact that we've kind of had an interest in these kind of sectors and this technology. It's kind of brought us to this place. So it just shows how life can be kind of fluid like that in a way. The fact that people, interact with us talking about things like creative AI, emerging technology. Would I have said that was something 10 years ago that would happen to us? Actually, it wouldn't, because I didn't know Kerry Harrison 10 years ago. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Moving on. This is probably more important than actual AI technology itself or creative AI. It is Sturgeon's law. So I'm just moving the little thing around the screen so I can see the screen myself better. There you go. Sturgeon's law, which you can look it up later, but essentially it was postulated by a sci-fi guy in the 50s and kind of adapted. It says, it purports, that's a good word, isn't it? It purports that 90% of everything is crap. And I reckon if you're really objective about it, that's probably true. And when I say everything, I mean everything. And that can mean including advertising and marketing. It probably gets up to more than 95, doesn't it, Kerry, in marketing? So this is probably what we're about. And we're very much, in a way, we've tried to be, since the launch of Tiny Giant, evangelists in getting people to do less crap. I mean, the whole thing with people having ad block. Why do people block ads? Because they're intrusive, they get in the way. But we often say it's because the actual ideas and conceits behind them are crap. And we find that, if you have a good idea and you mirror it to something interesting with technology, you can make really interesting, pleasing, joyful experiences that actually can help people kind of sell stuff as well. And it doesn't feel intrusive. So that's what we're about. I've got to click the screen rather than my side button. Here's a question. This is this is to get the chat going, right? One of the things about this is that the term AI, and we've kind of used it here, right? We're not massive fans of the term AI for reasons that are vast and complex. Artificial intelligence, to our mind, conjures up all sorts of misnomers. And in fact, the things that we kind of use in the realm of AI isn't really AI. We tend to use machine learning as the kind of term that's right for us. AI has many sort of many different facets underneath it, but AI as a term is a useful term because people immediately go, oh, I kind of get what you're talking about, as opposed to if we talked about machine learning or we talked about GANs, and they'd be like, oh, I don't know what that is. but it's funny. It's definitely a loaded term, AI. So it'd be quite interesting. We'd like to find out in the chat, you know, as a means to prompt, how you feel about it, and certainly how you feel about it specifically with what we do in terms of creative AI, and can it have a role in helping any kind of creative individual or business or kind of process? Can it make it better? Can it improve it? Is it something that you kind of feel good about? Do you think it's going to kind of like kind of steal your job or make you redundant, or does it liberate you to do other things? One of the things about AI is a classic case is that it gets twisted and used in headlines all over the place, and this is well beyond not just the creative stuff that in the world we exist in, but when you see these dystopian headlines, AI is going to do this, AI is going to do that, they're going to replace it with, and most of it is just not, well, nearly all of it is nonsense. Probably Sturgeon's law, because 90% of headlines about AI are crap, right? So again, Sturgeon's law powers on yet again. But here's a classic case in point, and this is, to be honest, this is a case from the Guardian, which is a media outlet that I will entrust in these days of fake news and what's not. But they had a story which is all about GPT-3, which is something we will touch upon later, which is a neural network that helps that creates amazing written output. But they ran a story about it in all the excitement with that headline, you see. And straight away, if you look at that headline, what a load of crap, right? A robot wrote this entire article. Are you scared yet, human? Right now, of course, what you would say about that, did the robot come up with the headline as well? Well, that's a bit weird, because it wasn't a robot that wrote it. It was actually a neural network. Why would it choose robot? Is the neural network so smart that it would choose a robot to make people feel unsettled? Well, this is all part of the debate. And this turned up in the Guardian, and it was all about GPT-3, and the entire article was put together by GPT-3 and written. And then, of course, this prompted a massive response, big talk on social media about it. And then a few days later, the Guardian said, well, yes, it was, but actually it's more complicated than that, because it was all to do, it wasn't just a machine. You do need humans in the process. There's an editorial process about it. It wasn't a case of press a button, get a story, publish it, right? And that's often what goes on about, which I think, Kerry Harrison, is a beautiful segue. I haven't pressed the slide yet, but it's a beautiful segue to talk about it'd be crap if I've got this wrong, because I'm guessing what the next slide is.
There's one more slide, but it's all right, I'll pick it up.
Is there? I'll go fast. There's 2 more slides. I have crap. Basically, this is the same thing. It's about, I'm going back to what I said before, it's about the headlines, it's about this, that, and ever. But more importantly, and this is the crux of what we like to think about when it comes to machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's not about a machine, and it's not about sort of displaced humans. Actually, what it's all about, certainly in our realm, is about machines and humans collaborating. Not bad. Got there in the end. Sorry.
Got there in the end. Yeah. So I think just picking up on the last slide, which was about PwC. So a lot of the headlines we see in the media are very scaremongery, because people do react to being frightened. And as you can see from the Guardian article there's like 67,000 shares of that article. But PwC did a report not that long ago, which stated that AI would create a lot of jobs as well as potentially take them. So it isn't always a negative thing. It's just that if you read the media, you would think it would be, but there is a lot of positive sides of it. And in terms of creating to the, adding to the economy and helping to support new jobs, then AI is very much, something that we can also celebrate. So as Norts just mentioned, human tech collaboration is something very much that we're about at Tiny Giant. So it's not about AI taking over our jobs. It's about working alongside it to help us to be more creative. So augmenting our own creativity, or using it as a starting point or a jump off point to do some cool and interesting stuff. So Norts mentioned very briefly earlier, but we're both from an advertising background. We both worked in different agencies. So Norts was an executive creative director. I was heading up the creative team, and we were both frustrated by working in agencies that didn't necessarily want to do anything too exciting with tech or really push the boundaries. So we met for a coffee one day and just decided, sod it, let's just set something up. And we did, and we set up Tiny Giant. And one of the things that's at the core of what we do is the idea of working alongside technology. So it's not about AI coming and doing what we do, it's about working with it. So if you go to the next slide, this was probably one of the first pieces of creative work that I saw, and I think it might be for Norts as well, but this was a campaign that was done by Nutella over in Italy. It was all about celebrating the uniqueness of Nutella and also the Italian people, and they used algorithms and potentially AI. I'm not sure if it was AI or whether it was algorithms. It's still very much under debate, but let's just say it was algorithms for now. And what they did was they created 7 million unique jars. So what they did was they got human designers to create a range of patterns and shapes and a range of colors that they thought would sit really nicely with a Nutella brand. And then they used an algorithm to take all of those assets and create 7 million unique jars. And here are just a few of them you can see in front of you now. But what's interesting is that there's no way that a human designer or a team of human designers could create 7 million unique jars in any way that was financially viable. But there's no way that machine would have come up with something that looks so gorgeous as what is there now, or something that was so sort of on brand, but also linked really nicely with everything that they wanted to get across. So the two together created something completely unique and very, very cool. It looks gorgeous. It's in fact, the whole 7 million jars sold out within less than a month. So a pretty impressive result at the end of it as well. But yeah, I remember seeing that, and I think Norts was the same, and we thought that's the kind of stuff we want to do. So the next stuff we did, I suppose, as one of the first things we did with Tiny Giant in a similar vein to that, was decide what can we do that would be really cool, that would help us to explore what AI can do creatively. And we decided we'd start with cake, because cake, everyone likes cake, and we thought they're really pretty and they're really tasty, so let's do something with cake. So what we did was we trained a recurrent neural network, which is a form of machine learning algorithm. And again, like Norts was saying earlier, it is a form of AI, but it's machine learning really. You train a neural network, so you basically feed it hundreds and hundreds of cake and muffin recipes, which is what we did here, but it could be anything. You can train a network on anything, and then using prediction, it will then come up with a whole new bunch of whatever you've trained it on. It will come with a whole new range of its own. So in this case, it came up with a whole bunch of cake recipes. We had vanilla Guinness and marmalade, we had poached pear and coriander, we had a whole bunch of recipes. But what we did was we didn't just take the output and make the cakes. We worked with a really amazing cake maker in our hometown of Bristol and worked with her very closely, and she chose the recipes from the machine that she thought would be the most appealing, and then she made the cakes which looked like this, and they were really good, and we served them at our event. And she even kept one of the recipes and used them within her own business, which is a very nice thing for us. Then our next thing along, because we loved that, and then someone suggested to us we should do AI cocktails, and we thought, well, why not? Let's do cocktails. So we did exactly the same thing. We trained a recurrent neural network on hundreds and hundreds of cocktail recipes, and then we created the recipes and actually brought them to life. Again, with a human, so we used a mixologist called Seb at a really cool cocktail bar in Bristol, and he was terrified initially at the AI because he thought it was going to come and take his job. And we eventually convinced him it was all about using the AI recipes and using that to push his boundaries and take him beyond his comfort zone, which he did, and made these really lovely cocktails here. The green one is a sour cherry and champagne and courgette cocktail. And what we said actually that Seb brought to the mix was he didn't just get a courgette and grate it into a bit of champagne, because that probably would have been pretty grim. He made a tincture with it. So he used his skills as a human, someone who understands tastes and flavors, and made this really lovely cocktail. So these cocktails, bizarrely for us, because it was a bit of a fun experiment, but it got quite a lot of traction. It got we got into a few blogs. It got featured in BBC, came and had a look at what we were up to. It got put into a few local newspapers as well. So it was really nice for us to do that. And then what happened from there was that we ended up getting some quite a lot of work from that as a whole. So we not only got contacted by the Cheltenham Science Festival, who we'll talk about in a minute, but we also ended up serving AI cocktails at a whole bunch of events last summer, which was brilliant. This was the one with Kenshu and Bacardi, which is down in London, which is a really cool festival. We've done a range of tech festivals. We worked with the Austrian Patent Office. We worked with Deloitte. So a lot of people who wanted to use AI to sort of highlight it in a tangible way and to start conversations is our cocktails went pretty well, and we still do. I was gonna say it's quite hard now, but I'll tell you what we've been doing since. So when the cocktails went out, and the coordinator of the Cheltenham Science Festival very bizarrely dropped us an email and said, I've just seen your cocktails and I was wondering if you could create an AI festival curator for the Cheltenham Science Festival. And we said,
because that's the obvious connection, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, she's pretty bonkers. She's amazing, and she was just like, I just really want to do something like this, but for the festival. So we want an AI curator that can come up with some some suggestions for talks. We wanted to do the AI to do a beginning bit of the brochure. We want it to be really part of the festival, and also we want to educate people about AI and put it within the festival itself, because there was a few talks happening at the event around AI, and it was just about making it accessible to everybody so people could understand a bit about it. So we took on the job of creating an AI curator, which was amazing. We absolutely loved this project. So we created a recurrent neural network of a machine learning algorithm, and we gave it a name and a face, because obviously neural networks are just text-based and code, and we wanted to give it a face because there was also human guest curators at the festival. So this one had to sit alongside 2 human curators, and we called it Ada after Ada Lovelace. And yeah, so that was what she looked like. But in terms of what we did, in terms of generating names for the talks, we trained the network on every single talk ever delivered at the Cheltenham Science Festival. So Norts and I sat down over the course of a weekend and literally stripped out from 12 years of brochures every talk, title and description ever delivered at the festival. And that's what we used as our data set. And the machine then learned from those, so it got everything, it made predictions, and it then was able to create a whole new range of talk titles that we could use at the festival. There was a whole bunch of talk titles. Here are some of them. They are quite weird and wacky. We've got things like Aliens, What, Cars of the Mental. We've got the Perfume Greenland Mystery. There's more. If you go on to the next slide, we really liked the idea of doing a 3D dog workshop. And anyway, so we took up a whole range, there's hundreds and hundreds, and we took probably about 20 or so up to the coordinator, and she loved them. We couldn't decide which one to choose, so she put it out on Cheltenham Science Festival, put it out on Twitter, and the general public chose Introvert Narwhals as the talk for the event. And that talk was delivered at the Cheltenham Science Festival. So it was generated by AI and delivered by humans at the festival, and also a panel as well. So we went and sat on the panel to talk about the way that AI was affecting culture. So it was a really lovely event. And we also got the AI using text generation, which Norts will talk about shortly. We use that as well to create the front bit of the brochure, so that she actually had a voice and a say in the festival itself, which was really lovely. We also took her onto BBC Radio. She was featured in a load of blogs. It was a sellout event. It was a real conversation starter for a lot of people, and the event itself was just really fun. We had a natural history presenter talking about whether narwhals were introvert or not, which luckily for us, it turns out they are quite shy, so that was a good thing. But yeah, so it all went down really well, and we were also really pleased because it won a DMA Gold Award. I think it's next slide, Norts.
I don't think it is.
Oh, is it? Have I missed one?
Well, no, that's it.
There it is. And it also won a DMA award, which is
You're right.
Association for Best Use of AI, which was great for us and the Cheltenham Science Festival. So yeah, can we go to the next one? So that was, I suppose that was in the old world, because a lot of the work that we were doing with AI and creativity happened to be at events, but now obviously a lot of events have now had to go online. So this year we've actually taken Ada, our festival curator, online. She became the face of the 2020 festival for Cheltenham, which was lovely. We've also just done a big project with a company, next slide please, Norts, with a company up in Northumbria. They're a big water company. They're doing an innovation festival every year, gets around 3,000 people through the door normally, and they were going online for the first time. So they asked us if we could do a couple of fun virtual AI things for the event. So we couldn't serve up our cocktails, sadly, but we did create a cocktail generator. You could press a button, you get an AI cocktail name, and then you could make your own concoctions at home and share them online. So that was Blueberry Groove was the one that I've chosen there. But you just press a button and another AI generated name is suggested for you. We also created an algorithmic art generator, which was really cool. So we used a human artist to gather a range of assets, and then we put those together into an algorithm. So anyone could just press generate and create a lovely piece of art. And there's a piece there. If you go on to the next slide, there's a couple of other ones that you can generate. But yeah, so you literally press a button. If you didn't like it, you could just press it again and there'd be another piece of art. It would just go and go and go and go. So that was another thing that we did for them, which was really nice.
I don't know why we're not flogging them for 15 quid a piece, but hey. I saw the other, just to interest,
nice.
I saw that guy who's doing the thing with He's called Ganksy, and he's doing a generated. He's doing the Banksy.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
I noticed he's flogging them for. He's going to walk into a legal minefield there. But hey, who am I to question? Sorry,
that's right. And then so that's another one, and then the next one I think is is Minecraft. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep.
The next one is. This isn't AI or AR, but it's just something we did for a festival. So a lot of people have said to us, can you do something cool at our event, but virtually? Owen, you'll recognise this. This is a really big building in Bristol. It's called the Colston Hall. It's just recently been renamed actually the Bristol Beacon, but it's a lovely event space, and it was being used for an event in Bristol called the Bristol Tech Festival. And as part of the promotions for that, because they wanted to do some promotional stuff on social, we created the building in Minecraft, and it looks really lovely. You can move around it, you could even go inside and decorate it how you wished. But that was the Colston Hall. It got it got a lot of tweets and quite a lot of impressions, and it also got tweeted by the Bristol Mayor, which was a really nice thing for us. And the event sold out as well, which was really good. Not just because of this, but it all helped. So yeah, I think that's a bit of AI and creativity in terms of the world of events. I think you're up next, Norts, as far as I know, and we're going to be looking more around text and how AI can help with the creation of content and scripts.
I'll tell you one thing I will say. It's got nothing to do with this talk. That I don't know how many months we've been doing these now, but even when you see screen share on Zoom, I'm still never certain on a Mac which is the best way to move along one slide at a time. I've got to come up with some better. I've tried 4 different techniques, and they've all got pros and they've all got cons. So I keep flitting back and forth, don't I? Anyway, yes, AI written scripts and ads. Now, what we would have said, like when we kicked off back in those halcyon days, those giddy days of 2018, when we probably did our first I'll Be Back event in September of that year, and people came along, and as they would say in the same way, because they were worried, like questions, they go, oh, do you think that AI is going to be able to write like a human? Do you think that's going to happen? And we go, oh, come on, it's 1520. You'll have retired by the time, and this is some sort of, stripling who's just joined the Avatar. You'll have retired by the time AI ever gets good enough to write as well as you can write. Well, we said that 2 years ago, didn't we? We said that 2 years ago. And don't things move fast? Yes, they do, as we'll demonstrate. So, for example, this is a case in point. And what I want to say, what I want to sort of convey is there's different sorts, and in the creative realm, isn't there? There's different sorts of writing. There's a very sort of functional writing. Take the case of Alibaba here, which is kind of like the Chinese Amazon. It's just a marketplace with millions upon millions of goods. But those goods have to be conveyed. That content has to be shared for people to see it, to commercially interact with it. So some copy has to be written. Oh, imagine all the copy that needs to be written by humans. Don't get humans to write it because it's functional, it's descriptive copy. So what they actually done, they basically developed a neural network that somehow writes 20,000 copy lines in a second, right? Whoa, Nelly, that's pretty impressive. But just a little step away from the curve a minute to understand that most of that is quite functional. It describes what the product is. It's not giving you a glowing, kind of like emotionally resonant sort of series of beautiful words that make you think, oh, I must have that. It's purely, it does that. And I'm totally down, right? I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm totally down. If you can get a machine to do that so you don't have to do it, why wouldn't you do that? That seems like a very sensible thing. Other businesses, which I don't think I'm going to go forward a slide. I'm coming back to me. Other businesses have got into the realm of doing the same sort of thing, but in the kind of marketing. So companies like Phrasey, for example. Who's the other lot, Kerry?
Masado.
Isn't it? Who basically develops algorithms and machine learning techniques to help businesses write email subject lines, right? And so therefore, when you think about that, I mean, we've both had the pleasure and the hell of being subject line writers. And if you think about it, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like someone says, oh, God, we've got to send this email out. Everyone has what subject line? How can we come up with a killer subject line that's going to get the maximum number of opens, clicks, blah, blah, blah? Well, I don't know. So you have to do some user testing, aren't we? Use data. We'll do one and we'll do another one. And we'll set them next to each other and we'll see which works the best. And one that works the best, off you go like that. And you go on that classic A/B testing, and that's fine. But again, if somebody comes and says, I've got a good subject line because it worked, well, you've absolutely no idea. You've got to test it. But then isn't it amazing if you can get a machine to write 10,000 subject lines for you, you are going to find out pretty soon the things that actually resonate or not. So again, Kerry, I cannot speak for you, but I'm sure you'd agree. neither of us want to be known as the world's greatest subject line writer, do we? Right? I don't think that's a title that carries much weight, right? And if that really is your thing in terms of your creative, I really want to be the best email subject line writer. That's absolutely fine. But to be honest, why don't you just let a machine do it and allow yourself to think of higher things, right? Higher things like maybe, I don't know, writing the actual ad itself. Well, guess what? Guess what? So this is one of those classic debates whereby somebody wanted to be the first ad that was written by AI, right? And so Lexus, because they got a fantastic PR machine, no doubt, behind them, took this title. I would argue myself that someone had done it in Japan maybe 2.5 years earlier. But hey, it's a story, isn't it? People believe what they want to believe, as they say. So Lexus did this probably 18 months or so ago now. So again, things have moved on apace, and there have been a few other little interesting AI attempts since then, which we just haven't got time to cover today. But we're more than happy to talk about it at length some other time. So Lexus basically trained a machine on, I think it was a whole bunch of award-winning scripts from Cannes. So the sort of Cannes Festival is so say the celebration of all the best creativity in the world. So therefore you would assume that award-winning ads, oh yeah, but did it do the business? Doesn't matter. They're pretty good ads. If they made it to Cannes, they must be quite good. It basically took that learning and then it kind of predicted through writing a script what would be a kind of an ad that would resonate. So Lexus took it aboard and they made an ad. And of course, Lexus, they're going to put some money behind it. And it was a big budget ad. You may have seen it yourself. And in a way, you may have seen it and been totally unaware that AI wrote it. You don't need to know it's written by AI, do you? You just enjoy the experience for what it is. There's been plenty of AI short films have been created as well. If you didn't know it was AI, you just watch the experience and go, well, that was a bit weird, wasn't it? Doesn't really matter, does it? But in this particular case, because Lexus wanted to make a bang about it, they made the first AI ad. They got the director, the Oscar award-winning director, Kevin McDonald, to actually make the ad. And it's you can search it out, you can find it on YouTube, and it's I think it's fair to say, Kerry, it's a perfectly serviceable ad, isn't it?
Really? Yeah, it's fine.
I think you might say, what was that about exactly? But you just say, well, it doesn't matter. It's brand awareness. It's Lexus. You know, it's Lexus. That's the point. So that's that. So that's happening. And again, the pace of development, when we talk about GPT-3, come back to it. Talk about GPT-3. We touched upon it earlier with The Guardian. This is basically a neural network that's been created. So you've heard Kerry talk about, you can do things with recurrent neural networks. You can train them, and you can train them to you can put any text into them, and they will give you an output. And so we did it with recipes, but you could do it with you could write books, you could write poetry, you could do all that, and ultimately it's how much time you want to pour into it. You can do science festival talks, can't you? You can do anything you want, and we've tried all those things. But then GPT-3 comes along, and it's like the sort of juggernaut of neural networks for that purpose, created by an American company called OpenAI, funded for the public good. That's the idea. They're looking to create things for the good of society. They've created this ginormous neural network that basically can pretty much write anything. I want to say anything. I kind of mean anything. And it's really funny because when OpenAI first was kind of placed into the public domain, that there was this technology, the headlines, going back to what you said at the start, was like, is this the computer that ends humanity? There was a headline like that about it. And you just thought, well, what the hell? It's just because the idea being, I guess, that the lead is like, oh, if you've got an AI can write anything, then it might make fake this, fake that, fake the other. Well, again, that's just creating sort of like headlines for the sake of it and strife for the sake of strife. Don't think about that. You can do it for lots of other things. So we were lucky enough to get involved with GPT-3. It was GPT-1, there was GPT-2, and then there's this mega GPT-3, millions of sources, fantastic output. And it is pretty much a case you can put in half a sentence and hit the button, and then it will create a whole bunch of text. And you can look at it, and again, it's human. You could just use the output, but then you go, oh, that's quite good. I'll change that bit. You hit the button again, and it creates that process. But what's nice about it is it's really fast. And then you can kind of put tones. You can get, if you want to write in the style of, I don't know, Charles Dickens, it'll kind of do a Dickens style. If you want to write anything, it can do things with coding. It's mad, right? And that, surprise, surprise, we sort of turned it into a commercial model. But going back to the Northumbrian Water Festival, I'm thinking as well, Kerry, that because we're talking to the good people. Some of these people might even get their water from Northumbrian Water if they live like north of York, mightn't they? I don't know. You might have experience of that. So much like, this is again a classic case story. Northumbrian Water got in touch with us because they'd seen the likes of, might be some from Northumbrian Water on this talk this very day. I have absolutely no idea. But basically, the gist was they had seen Ada at this year's 2020 as the host of the lockdown festival. They have their own very successful innovation festival, which had been running, I think, at Newcastle Racecourse. And they said, we'd like to have a host, much like we saw with Ada. Theirs ended up being called AIF. You can see her on screen there, right? We had other names for it. I thought it was going to be a watery name, Kerry, didn't we? That's what we thought, Delta or something like that. But they were for AIF, which to me is it's got the AI in it. I'll see what they've done. Anyway, same thing, and a nice illustration thing. But what we wanted to do was take it a little bit further because the technology has moved on from whence we did Ada to AIF. And so we used GPT-3. One of the things we did and were asked for was to get AIF to do a lightning talk at the actual festival. So instead of me and Kerry talking to you, it was actually AIF through a film. So this created a series of challenges because number one, we had to create a lightning script that AIF would say. Hang on a minute, you just said say. No, correct, because we had to then create a voice for her to speak. Yeah, see where you're going with this. And then ultimately we had to turn that into a kind of moving thing so that her lips would move and she'd be animate. You had to bring her to life. You could spend months developing that, and we didn't. We had about 2 weeks, right? But the amazing thing is what I think we're trying to sort of say is that the technology, the democratization of technology kind of allows you to do these things. So what would have been seemingly impossible 2 years ago is now very doable. So let me just, so this is AIF in her form there. And the Innovation Festival, one of the things about, she is a sort of, if you would create a sort of backstory, she's a water engineer. I think you might get the idea of that, but she's at the festival. That's why she's got a glow stick and she's grooving, and we're trying to bring that. And I suppose the other thing we did, we also created some AI music for the festival, which was again a thing you could have done with great complication 2 or 3 years ago, but now it's again relatively straightforward. Just going to work out the best way to click. So now, if we look at this, was GPT-3 in action. So when the actual script was being created, what a lightning talk was going to be about, in a way, it was a talk about creative AI as we are today, except it's AIF doing it. When you put the stuff in to see what she's going to say, you can see a thing on screen here. This was nothing to do with human hand at all. This is GPT-3 writing its thoughts about artificial intelligence and whether it can be creative or not, right? No human hand is involved in that. And you're thinking, oh, that's pretty good. There's some quite complex words, some quite complex thoughts going on there. But the beauty of it is it can also go off in interesting places. So part of her lightning talk, for no other reason than the algorithm kind of predicts it should go here, and it just goes there. She ends up talking about black pepper and papier-mâché horses. And in a funny sort of way, if you did this 2 years ago, it's like that term we used, she'd have written like a drunken sailor. But now it can sort of bring in. And ultimately, like we say, we could have created an output that was purely machine generated, and you take it and you use it. But the beauty of using kind of human decisions, you can say, well, actually, that's really a beautiful piece of prose that's been written, but we'll have that. Oh, that's quite funny. We'll have it. We're totally hands-on to the idea that you collaborate with the machine and you make it better, rather than saying, well, the machine does it and that's that. So it's kind of how it goes. So ultimately, the manifestation of that, and again, using something called a first order motion model, I have actually no idea if we're going to get sound here, but we'll see, was that we were able to take one single illustration of AIF, apply a neural network script, and put a deep learning voice to it, and she comes to life and does a talk. And I think here's a little short extract of it. Let's see.
Hello, I am AIF.
Can you hear that?
I am the AI host of the NWG Innovation Festival. I am recently born, created by Tiny Giant in collaboration with GPT-3, a breathtaking language algorithm that uses machine learning to write text. I have been trained with 175 billion parameters. I'm always learning more about how to make the experiences with AI machines delightful. As the AI host of this discussion, I'm actually in charge of placing it. And it grows ever more fun.
Oh, you've got the idea, haven't you? Right? I'm conscious of time, Owen. I'm conscious of the time. And to be honest, I'm hoping people are engaging with myself and Kerry and all that, but they just want to draw an AI cat, don't they? Let's face the facts. Let's face it. Am I doing this bit?
Yeah.
Do it. Should I do this bit? All right, yeah, okay. So we better make it interactive. We better do something. So how about drawing an AI cat? Hey, how do you feel about that? I can't hear you, so I've no idea if you're screaming yes. That's why we're here, you fool. Right? Let's do that. Right? Let's give it a go. So there is a. So again, using a technology with artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's called GAN technology, generative adversarial networks. Right? Again, I ain't got time to go in what they're doing. Right? It's just they're fighting each other to create the perfect output. You can basically create AI cats, and there's a site. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's called This Cat Doesn't Really Exist.com, and it just has an infinite number of cats. And here's a few examples. Sometimes the cats are perfect, right? And I wouldn't show perfect cats to you on screen because you wouldn't know them to be AI cats. But sometimes you can see the machine learning, the GAN doesn't get it quite right, and you get these sort of strange mutant cats, don't you? Unless, of course, you maybe own a cat that looks like that, then good luck to you. Maybe you should parade it or something to see if quite. So, here's an example. So this basically what I'm going to send you off to do, well, or do it in your own leisure time later and post it, is basic. Now, I did this one yesterday. I drew that, and that's really all you have to do. I don't know what I was thinking, really, because I seem to have drawn a rabbit rather than a cat. And I realised as I did it, oh, that looks like a rabbit more than a cat. What are you thinking? But anyway, it actually still makes a cat. It's kind of, I've got a sort of evolving cat there because it's sort of learned to walk on 2 feet, so to speak. It's a cat of the future, right? And here's Kerry's cat, and she's spent a lot more time and energy, see, and thought on that, haven't you? I don't know if you want to take a few seconds just to talk through the motive. This is a design week talk, some of the motivation of your illustration, maybe, to understand what it was you created.
Yeah, in terms of when you go on, so I've put the link in the chat. When you go on, you literally, I think you might have to press clear first, but you can draw a sketch of a cat, and then you press process, and it will turn your cat into your sketch.
We want to know why that cat is. Why is your cat like that cat? What was your motivation to draw that particular cat? Is that a cat from your childhood or a cartoon cat that closest?
No, I just thought it was an easy way. I just think a face is easier to draw than a body, personally.
Yeah,
but yeah,
rabbit. See, rabbit, cat, rabbit, cat. See, but anyway, you can see now. I will say, I mean, you can see that I'm not going to in any way make any guesses on Kerry's, but we didn't spend a ton of time drawing a cat. You can spend as much time if you're a really super brilliantly talented artist. If you draw a really, really good cat, it will create a really, really good AI cat, right? I stand by that. So yeah, Kerry's put in the chat. I've put this little short. I made a little URL short link for you, rather than so that will take you to the place there, tinyurl.com/tgcat. I encourage you to have a go at making a few mutant cats. I did think, well, you can if you post them on Twitter and and tag us on there, then we're going to share them out to the world. But you, Owen, might suggest some other clever social route to share these bastardized
We'll
cats.
definitely share it on our social, definitely.
Because I tell you, it'll be a rabbit hole. If you start drawing, it'll be a cat hole. Once you start drawing them, you won't be able to stop. Really, I think that's fair to say. Now I'm gonna rattle on. I'm gonna rattle on very quickly. I'm going to be super quick on this one. This is something else we've done, but it's just to show that creative AI isn't just about fun and frivolity. You can do things that commercially kind of wow the world. What's that click thing again? Here you go. So we were tasked with. Oh, I feel I've gone too far there too soon, but I have. Look, there you go. So we were tasked a year or so ago, slightly more. We worked with a distillery in Bristol to make a gin. They wanted to make an impact on the world. They're very small. They wanted to get noticed. They wanted traction. They said something like in 2019, they were telling us there'd been like 200 gin distilleries that cropped up in the UK. So its competition's quite high. Could we do something that will help us stand out? That's what really the brief was. And we went, hey, has anyone ever made an AI gin? Oh, I don't think so. Was there music to our ears? And so we did that. And again, a lot of those techniques you heard before, you put data into the machine. With gin, it's about botanicals, so you can come up with botanical creations. And we said, well, that's all well and good coming up with some botanical suggestions for you expert distillers to make, but we could come up with the name, we could come up with the label design, we could do all these sorts of things for you. And they fair play to them. They went, go for your life, right? And so we did. So here's an example. These are some of the names amongst all we put thousands of names in to work out. Well, we'll not get to yet. And these are some of the names that didn't get chosen as the particular AI gin that was created ultimately, which is a bit of a shame because I think some of those names are pretty good. I think we'd all like to sup on a Cosmo Billy. That's probably more a brew or a Digby 6 or Kit. They're all pretty cool. And again, one of the things we wanted as part of this story is we wanted to create a kind of the backstory. There was a sort of an AI with a kind of, well, it is actually a robot, isn't it? We're feeding that kind of lie about robots creating it, because this is like a gin robot who was called Jeanette. We had a super illustrator called Tim Suckles who created for it, and that helps create the story, doesn't it? Helps power the PR that goes with it. Do they really have a robot that makes the gin? Yes, they do. So that was that. But in the end, we had all these hundreds of names. The distillers chose, what was the same? Click there. They chose Monker's Gargle as the name. Why did they choose Monker's Gargle? Because they said it sounded a bit ginny. I don't know what that means. A bit ginny, a bit sci-fi, and a bit wonky. Well, I thought that's fair enough. And then again, you can see this algorithmic thing whereby we use this tool to create all these different kinds of labels to kind of, and the idea was we wanted to do the Nutella and have a different Monker's Gargle label on every bottle. There were 1,000 bottles made. They said, oh, we're not paying for 1,000 different labels print. We're not doing that. So we have to choose one. Fair enough, as it is. And this ultimately was the label that was created. But of course, the other beautiful thing about doing this is that Jeanette's actually got to write the stuff on the label. She did the marketing, she did the promotion. So it was truly a sort of 360 machine learning gin experience. And that gin, I don't know what the next slide is. Let's see what happens. There it is. That gin was created. That gin was sold. That gin was bought by people on 5 continents. They also were featured in press across 5 continents, which ultimately the gin wasn't really important. It was news of the gin that was more important because it spread the circumstance distilleries were there. I finally name dropped them there across the world. So that was kind of in part. So it's nice to see again this kind of human machine combination creating actually something physical that could be enjoyed and shared. And by all accounts, they were very proud of their efforts in terms of the botanical combination they threw up. What was interesting to those as creators of drinks is that they said actually the combination that they chose from Jeanette from the prediction was something they would never have done, because they'd have taken their human biases and not put those things together. So that's fair enough. And I suppose recently we haven't made a song or dance about it at all, Kerry, but well, we didn't even know about it because they didn't even tell us that it actually won a award at the London Spirits competition. It won a silver, and that's nothing to do with what it was called in the AI. That was just to do purely with the taste of the gin. So in a way, it's kind of like, oh, that's okay then, isn't it? Because they wouldn't have had that combination of botanicals without I can't remember. I'm terrible at remembering all those botanicals. Can you remember? There's a load of flowers in it, isn't there, Kerry? Can you remember?
There's definitely marigold. I can't remember the whole gooseberry, marigold, and I can't remember the rest. But
someone's going to fire that question in. Someone's going to fire that question in. Oh, and here's a case in point. Here's some of the many places that it was taken into in terms of kind of places that covered it. And again, the BBC were on it. They did something quite recently about it. Bizarrely, it seems to have the publicity of it seems to have a very long tail, and that's purely because people are interested in this kind of emerging tech thing. Yeah, we're doing all right, Kerry. We're doing all right. So I'm going to hand.
Yeah,
about human. Yeah, we're doing all right.
I'll whiz through. So so you've seen a fair bit of stuff that we've done in the world of AI. Just a couple more that I'm going to show you. If you could move over, Norts, the next slide. So AI can also be used as, and I mentioned this earlier, as a jump off point or a form of inspiration for humans to do something a little bit different or to take their thinking in new directions, which is kind of what we were just saying about the gin as well, in that the distillers might not necessarily have chosen that combination of botanicals. But here, and I really love this is done by Philip Schmidt, where he used AI to sort of start off his designers to make them think in a new way. The ones on the left there are the AI generated chairs. So this is a chair project, and the data set here was thousands of 20th century iconic chairs, which they scraped from Pinterest, and they put those all together to create a data set. They trained a GAN, so as Nort said, a generative adversarial network. That's again a form of machine learning algorithm. They trained it on those, and then the AI was able to generate new chair designs in light of everything that it already seen and learnt. And then what they did was they took the actual output from the machine and then got human designers to almost make them into a reality. So you can see there that the human designers then turned the AI generated chairs into a sketch and then into prototypes. And then they went on to make one of the chairs finally. But again, like the gin, would you ever have thought of a chair or a design like that without having that kind of stimulation? It's just a really nice way of making you think differently. Another example in this, which is a very similar one, but this is with fashion design. This was done over at MIT over in the States, and they did the same thing with little black dresses. So they trained a GAN on thousands of little back dresses, and then the AI generated a range of designs, and one of them was taken and then made into an actual dress, which is what you can see here, which is quite slightly offbeat but quite cool. And what's another project we've done, I suppose, in the same light, is using branding. So we're just moving into this world now of how we can use AI in terms of branding, AI and algorithms to do something really interesting. So we worked with a company called Discover AI, who are based down in London. They're an AI startup using AI for research, and they wanted us to help them with their branding to do something slightly different and cool. So if you go to the next slide.
Oh, this honestly, there you go.
So we created a range of territories for them. This was the one that they went with. It was all around the concept of using circles as a discovery, because they're a research company. It's all about using AI to help them to discover and help people to sort of research in desk research, but in different ways. And with the branding on here, we used AI generated backgrounds. So if you just go to the next one, Norts. So we wanted to create a visual sort of hero element of all of their branding, and this is what we used. We did an AI generated background, which is the black and white one. We used colors, and then we used a range of photography and some textures. We've got like rips and different sort of textures that went into an algorithm. And then a bit like the algorithmic art thing that we showed you earlier, you could then literally press a button and a new design would be created. So if you just move over, so here are some of the hero images that we used, and they are all different. So every time it's slightly different to the one before. And yeah, so that's something we were really fascinated by, the fact you could just press a button and a new design would be created. And they really liked this concept. So they've now just got sort of an endless supply of images that they can use. And then if you go on to the next slide, we then added that with a range of textures and colors and sort of shapes. So a total human AI combination again. So obviously the human created all the assets that we used in the algorithm, and the human obviously also brought it all together. So it looks like that. So that's the kind of hero image on their website. But yeah, that's a very new area, sort of territory for us. But we're really exploring how we can use that, and especially from a design point of view, how can we use algorithms and AI to create design quickly, but still have a human in the mix to make it look really beautiful at the end point. I'm not sure what the next slide is.
I know what the next slide is. Hey!
Oh, it's AR. Do you want to do AR?
Well, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to have a little. How those cats are getting on. I have no idea how those cats are going. But are we all right? Because we got about 11 minutes. You know,
You're
how's
okay
it
for time. You've got time to finish off, and then we've got the Q&A. So yeah,
we got 80 more slides yet, Owen. I'm not so sure.
I have not. Just just whiz through this. We haven't got much.
Okay, look. Hey, look. So I want to go back a minute just to give context. So VR and AR, yeah, we've dabbled in all those sort of things before, but VR is a dead duck in my opinion, in a way. But well, not.
I disagree.
No. Well, that's right. It's right for us to disagree, isn't it? But I mean, I don't know. Let's not even go. We've got no time to have that debate today. Maybe there's many ways it's amazing, but augmented reality is definitely in the mainstream. It's all over people's phones. They might not even think of it, again, like AI, they might think of it as augmented reality because it's the thing that gives them kind of filters and layers. So when they're on Instagram or on Snapchat or even on TikTok now, it's what's actually creating things that are interesting, stimulating, surprising, and joyful. And we've got into this over the last kind of 15 months or so. There's me as a water engineer there I'd like to do that in my spare time. It's my dark little secret. There's something created by Derek, our technical director, which was a gold mask he created. It's kind of a theatrical thing there. He chucked it up onto Snapchat, and it's had millions of uses and views. It's kind of nice, actually. It's quite really good on. It's quite nice on the old Snap camera when you're on Zoom, and you can just have a pseudonym, can't you? Then no one knows who you are in the meeting. There was that meeting, wasn't there, Kerry, when I went in, and they thought I was a Zoom bomber. And I got chucked out. I got thrown out, and it was like, how rude is that?
And Derek, in our last meeting, was sat there as a kind of Japanese anime character, which is very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So these things, and then of course there's this one as well. There's you can go and check out the sort of stuff we do, but you can go on Snapchat. So augmented reality has many different ways to create kind of fun surprise, right? But again, our point is that it's not just about fun. No, it's something we did for the BBC, which kind of proves that point in a way. This was for a TV show they had in the summer called Peter Crack Save Our Summer. He was the star of the show. It was about the time when kind of lockdown 1 was happening. 2 meters. I don't know if it's a thing anymore, the 2 meter rule. Peter Crouch is just a little bit over 2 meters. So they basically used Peter as the star of the show to also serve as a as a kind of distancing device. And you can see here, this is him, it's 2 meter height, but you could equally flip him. Hopefully the next slide will put him on the ground, won't he? So you could use him in a kind of fun comedic way to actually judge your distance between people. So it's a lovely little tie in between the show, but actually it is kind of useful in a way. And again, we did that. They use a big media company, BBC, to sponsor it, saying, well, who's going to use that? Well, they put it out there as a sponsor, and I know that on Snapchat it had 1.8 million views, so therefore that got used 1.8 million times. So it's just these things, not necessarily, not particularly complex or difficult or hard to do in terms of big tech. I think one of the sort of barriers that we come across is a lot of people seem to think that emerging tech, AI, AR, anything is by its nature very, very expensive to do. It's not really. It's about start small, have some ambition. So there's a case in point. But then again, you can, in terms of AR, you can use it for lots of other things. A lot of AR is very much around the face. Warby Parker over in America, they basically deliver glasses. There is no Warby Parker store to go to. It's not like Specsavers or that. Warby Parkers do everything that's to your home. They're like an Amazon of glasses, okay? So therefore, if you want to experience what those glasses are going to look like, ultimately, you put them on your face. How do you do that? You do it through a Warby Parker experience there, and they have a virtual try-on. Works perfectly well, to be honest. Again, the more people use this stuff, the more they get used to it. It hasn't done Warby Parker any harm. Lots and lots of examples. IKEA is someone who very much use AI, and you can see the sense of it. Placing items in your home to see what they look like makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Oh, I wonder what it takes that thing of like being in your head, putting it in front of you on your life support machine here, your mobile phone, and you get an idea. That can only help. Other example here, this is something from Mulberry in Tokyo. It's basically a sort of a way that you can experience a three-dimensional model of a bag. I'm sure of a Mulberry bag probably costs a bit, but actually the beauty of this is you can actually also kind of style the bag in the way you want, and then you can actually buy it. So you can have the whole spin around, you can experience it. It's a beautiful model. It's actually, you get quite close, you can see the texturing, you can see the detail, you can change it to the way you want it, and then you can buy it. That's kind of a really nice frictionless way that you can use AR. Here's some stuff. This is from a really talented creative technologist in London called Omi Aki. And you can see the way, I'll just drop the volume a bit because I don't really need the music. You can see the way that you can actually take a paper, something that's, or it could be a bill, anything that's kind of a flat surface, and you can use augmented reality to bring it to life, again, in really interesting ways. In this particular case, you can see Will Smith here, he's being sort of mutated and stuff's happening in a very artistic way. But equally, you can use the same AR technology to produce information. There's no reason why you can't do that. Yeah, you can see it's jigging along. Loads and loads and loads of rich ways you can do this. This is quite a nice one. This is using web AR as opposed to kind of a platform like Instagram or Snapchat. This is something called Eighth Wall kind of powers it, but it's the same kind of idea. It's a platform. And essentially, it puts you into a Harry Potter world. This was a Lego app or a Lego experience. I'll do that again in a second. And essentially, you could say, I'll just come up with Harry Potter. I don't know, Expelliarmus. I don't know what that means. It sounds Harry Pottery, doesn't it? You do that. And so that's a real window in someone's house there. That's not an AR window. That is your window in your house, in your living room there. Quite a minimalist living room, I would say. But you say that. The AR then interprets what that space is there. And lo and behold, hopefully, Revelio, that was the word there. And then there's the old wand, does its business. The window is removed by the flying car that appears in, I think, second Harry Potter, something like that. And you kind of can go into a kind of alternative world, which is one of the wonderful things that you can do. So again, there's so many rich ways that you can do this stuff. And much like creative AI, the speed of change at which the technology is being democratized and made very accessible, especially with like 5G, means that, again, experiences that were impossible purely by their size 2 or 3 or 4 years ago are now actually very doable. And again, it's just another way to put a layer of experience, to turn something that's one thing into something else, which just makes it a richer, deeper, more fun experience. I'm going to say, hey, that leads lovely to you, Kerry.
Okay, so we've whizzed through really quickly there and shown you lots of examples. So hopefully we've convinced you that the opportunities are amazing. There's so much stuff you can do with creative AI and AR. And as Nort said, the technology is developing so quickly, and there is lots more you can do. And probably next month there'll be something else that you can do that we couldn't do now. So it's really fascinating. If you are, I would say that in terms of what we really love and in terms of the clients that we really love to work with, it's around those people who are willing to do something a little bit different. So we love this quote from Professor Scott Galloway: "Nothing wonderful ever happens. Take a risk." In terms of what we do, we talked about creative AI, we talked about AR, we do creative AI courses, we are a conceptual team, so you can hire us for a couple of days if you want us to stretch your thinking on a particular brief or a pitch. We do branding, and we also do podcast services as well, so we help people to either launch or brand or even interview podcasts. We do the whole caboodle. And this is us. If you want to find out more about it, you can sign up to our newsletter. If you go onto tinygiant.io and scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you can sign up to our newsletter. And we are also on Twitter.
That newsletter is going to come out soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, we still need to actually write it. But yeah, Tiny Giant, there we are. If you want to drop us a DM of any sort or let us know or ask any questions, then we're there. We also run an event every month called I'll Be Back Southwest, which is exploring the intersection between creativity, advertising and AI. And we have guest speakers who come in and talk around those things. The next one is on the 12th of November as part of Bristol Technology Festival. If you go onto Eventbrite and search for I'll Be Back Southwest, you can find it and come along. It's free. And that's it. So thank you very much. We are Tiny Giant. It's been lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, York.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, guys. That was very enthusiastically presented. I'm loving your passion for this, and having spoken to you in the lead up to the event for your design week, it's been great working with you, and thank you so much for sharing. I
can't believe it, and we covered the entire field of augmented reality in 90 seconds.
Well, quite impressive. You've managed, such a big area to condense it down. But I think it gives everybody who's listening the opportunity to check you guys out more thoroughly and some of the things that you're doing. I think that's one thing that's opened my mind a little bit in terms of the conversations that I've had with you guys. You are so knowledgeable and so open to talk and discuss about ideas and concepts. So definitely encourage people to interact, have a go at the cat and share those with Tiny Giant and the wider world. I'm going to stop recording. No, I'm going to keep recording. And I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen.
Oh yeah, I'd do that.
That's
me,
all right. And then we can just do the Q&A.
Bam.
What I'm going to also do is spotlight the two of you, if I can.
I will say, while we've been doing, I have realised now, 7 months it's taken me, but I suddenly realised how to do the Zoom talk when you screen share. Kerry, so of it, it's just the clipper that we use when we used to do it live, isn't it? Well, I just use that, and then.
No, it's amazing, really.
So at least that I've had a breakthrough there. To be
there honest. We go. Well, at least we've helped you, maybe in a small way.
Triumphant.
Right, I'm going to this. So you can do this one of two ways. You can both answer, or one of you can answer, and then the other. So we'll leave it pretty open. But we've got a number of questions that we're asking everybody who's talking on the Sunday sessions, and we'd like this to link basically back through into your design week. We've got, I suppose, our main theme, overarching theme is activism. So our first question to you is, do you see yourselves as activists? And if so, what is the one thing that you guys would like to change?
You want to go first?
You go first.
I would, for me, do I say, yes, I do. And I love the fact that, like, you look on social media now and loads of people are saying that they're an activist. I think it's brilliant. For me personally, talking about AI as a woman is really important. There's not enough people in the space who are talking. And also around using AI creatively, I feel that there's a real thing that you can only use AI if you work for a massive tech company or if you're a computer scientist, and I really disagree with that. I think you can do and create amazing things without being a coder or a developer. Luckily for us, there's some amazing tools and platforms available now where they are democratizing the sort of creative process with AI, and so I want more and more people to know about that. So I've written a few blogs, and if you go on our website or follow me on Twitter, then you can see some of those things I'm doing. So yeah, I would like to see myself as an activist.
Have I got? Shall I? Is that one? You want two answers?
You can go for it as well.
I'll just keep mine really short. Remove all Tories forever.
Oh God.
Well, I think that's the special thing. We can all be activists in certain areas, can't we? Or
So.
it can be driven by our own individual passions, and that's super important. I think that was one thing that you just said there, Kerry. I think there are lots of areas, in our field of graphic design agencies. One of the big things that's being talked about is the imbalances within the design industry, and the only way we can make change is by driving that ourselves. It might not impact itself straight away. It might take a number of years, but I think that we've all got to give it a go and get involved. So yeah, great. Thank you for those answers. Play is one of our themes. Play has been shown to release endorphins, improve brain functionality and stimulate creativity. There is often a misconception that play is only for children as part of growing up. But how do you guys play?
Play all the time. We're always messing around. I think it's the only way to discover what's possible. I think we spent the last 2 years of our business. I mean, we started playing around with the capabilities of AI creatively, and we are still doing it. We spend a lot of time, weekends, or even the odd day. In fact, last week we were like, let's just have a day of playing around and seeing what platforms we can play with and what we can do. And I just think it's really, like you say, it's really important. I think creatively, especially, like if you don't play, then you don't ever evolve or change or develop or learn anything. So I think it's absolutely fundamental.
I think
Norts is always playing. You can tell. Look at him.
Yeah, he's lost focus now. He just wants to go off and play.
I haven't. I was thinking about Cat. I think in the world that we were. I think about when Kerry had her former job and I had my former job, which were in advertising agencies. How much? I mean, goodness me, I was the boss of the creative department at one point there, and I was always trying to encourage play, but nobody else in the kind of management saw that play was important to that business. And it's like, well, without play, you're never going to get to the kind of ideas that cut through. And it was like one of the sources. And so, yeah, I'd like to think that, when you have a business, not everything is play, but I think a lot of the stuff we've ended up working on has come about through accidents and through endeavors of putting sort of one thing next to it. I think I said to you before we started, just things collide, or you try things out that you didn't really know how they work, and then you find that they work, and that is play, isn't it? And if it is bringing some sort of fun and reward and that, then all the better. Yeah, I think more than that, whatever percentage of our output as a business, whether it's commercial, artistic, or just for our own endeavors, most of it comes from play, I have to say. No doubt we'll go after this and have some play doing something clever.
Definitely.
I think so. I do like this thing where we're side by side. It's a real shame that I can't. No, it's that way, isn't it? I must just put my arm out. So.
Well, you're up and down for me, which is quite funny.
Oh, that's a shame. If I put this hand came into your, that would be absolutely amazing.
One day, within the next 2 years, Norts.
I could have engineered that. Yeah, within 2 years, absolutely. It won't even be me, Owen, or Kerry. We'll just have our. Well, actually, we could already do that, couldn't we, Kerry?
Just have a light.
We could have virtual avatars sat here. You think, they're very robotic, those two. There's not even here.
Moving on to rewild. How do you like to rewild and reconnect with nature and the screen space around you?
Well, that's you, isn't it? That's yours.
Norts doesn't leave the house. I run a lot, so I probably run 4 or 5 times a week. I'm really lucky that I live sort of on the outskirts of Bristol, so I can run out into the countryside, and that's what I do. And I just love it. I come back a completely different person. My husband literally pushes me out the door if I'm in a bad mood. Just go for a run. Just go for a run. And I go out and I run in the forest and get really mucky and muddy, and I just love it.
Can I push you out the door if you're in a bad mood in a meeting? Is that allowed?
Maybe.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I do.
Great. And you just stay inside. Have you got a garden, Norts? So do you go out?
Oh yeah, got a garden. But see, I have music as my nature, to be honest, in a way. I do. Yeah, I should spend more time amongst sort of like foliage and whatnot. I do have a little park opposite me, which I do. It's always one of those. I will say one of the things I always used to find in my old job, in Bristol in Queen Square, and it's happened here. It's sometimes when you're trying to think of an idea, if you're sat in that position like I am now, you're trying to think of an idea. Come on, think of an idea by looking at a screen. That don't work, does it? To be honest, that's a fail. And very often that distraction of going out somewhere often used to trigger, well, still does, trigger a thought, or not being in front of a screen is probably the best place to get an idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's what, I don't think I've had many decent ideas in the last decade when I've been sat in this position, staring at a screen. It just doesn't work like that.
Here. I totally agree.
But you know what? As soon as I'm going to get some galoshes on or something, or some boots. I'm going to you've inspired me to go to the Western Woods and frolic.
There we go.
And frolic. I'm not allowed to, am I?
Image.
Am I allowed with my new isolation? I don't know.
Probably not. Well, talking about your isolation, space, we don't see space as a physical place. People make spaces. What spaces have you created this year, and what space have you found that makes you happiest?
I think professionally we've created an online space for our event. So every month we've taken that from what used to be a lovely community offline and we've taken it online, which is lovely. Personally, I suppose during the lockdown as well, like I've started meditating and sort of finding a little space inside me somewhere to try and like reconnect with myself and what I believe and what I want to do. So yeah, two spaces there, very different spaces, but yeah.
Nice. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, digital space is what it's all been about for 7 months, hasn't it? Tell you what, I'll do this. I'll get the Yorkies on my side here. A recent space that I've got involved with is, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke at first or some sort of scam. There's a virtual cricket club. I'm a big fan of cricket. I love playing cricket, watching cricket, all things to do with cricket. I love Yorkshire. Somebody I know in the kind of game has set up a virtual cricket club where you can get to meet like the best players in the world like this in as like a Zoom. And when I just thought, for like, no way, that's not true, is it? That can't be true. And so I went on last week first time, and I'm sat there on, just like we were saying, talking to Joe Root. I mean, how weird is that? Right, Rooty, Yorkshire's finest son, right? And so that's again, it's got nothing to do with AI. It's got nothing to do with digital experiences. It's got nothing to do with creativity. It's just a complete realm that I enjoy thinking and talking about because it's a child. I've been sort of brought up on it. And the fact that you can interact with these experts, these people who are playing at the actual pinnacle of the game in a very sort of relaxed way is a state you've never, that could only have happened through a pandemic in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because Joe Root, Stuart Broad, Mark Wood, Steve Smith of Australia wouldn't be doing this normally, would they?
So, yeah, the boundaries have been broken down, haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I see what you did there. Boundaries. Nice one, Owen. See what you did there. And that's exactly the point. So, you know, there's many things to think about the pandemic and COVID and what that is there. But it has created places and spaces, and I'm going to rhyme me, places and spaces that hitherto would not have existed. This wouldn't be happening, would it, Owen?
No. Well, we were forced to do it.
Worlds have collided through it.
Yeah,
and for that
we
are thankful. We are thankful.
Yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. Makes your brain think in different ways as well.
Absolutely.
Well, two more. So we've got trust. What do you trust in?
What do I trust in? I think that in a way, COVID's brought out some good sides of humanity. Like I trust that in humanity and who we are as people. I think I've seen a lot of kindness, a lot of people getting together, you know, the thing on a Thursday when everyone went out and clapped, and, you know, people in the neighborhood that I haven't really spoken to, I've spoken to. And I feel like, you know, in creativity, that we've seen a lot of amazing creative work coming out of this time as well. So I'd like to say that I believe in humanity to do good and kind things.
Oh, fair enough. What I say, I'm going to say, like, you know, the idea when people work in the sort of creative space, in the design space, whatever, there's always that thing that you have to create a safe space for people to actually say their ideas, because a lot of ideas that are great ideas might sound like really stupid ideas at first, right? They're outliers, right? Because if you come from the middle, it'll just sound like everything else, and then you'll be in the 90% is crap realm, won't you? Because it's already we totally appreciate that there is nothing. There's originality. Everything is a kind of a mashup, isn't it? But again, it's combinations of weird mashups, this, that, and the other. So I think the idea that you have a space that you can share things and talk about things, that's got to be about trust, isn't it? I trust that when I put this idea into the realm of the world and someone hears, I've got this really interesting idea, I don't know what you think, that you put it out. You're not going to be, I've worked at agents, I'm sure same care, where people say, oh, that's a really stupid idea. And that's just bad. That's a bad mindset. And it's just not very good for kind of like confidence in people in that. But equally, you have to trust the people around you in those situations to sort of guide you and say, I think that's a good, do it, it's that shape. And I've great. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say ultimately, I trust that when I put ideas in front of Kerry Harrison, right, we're working on project, she's very good at determining those which have legs and those that perhaps don't throw them away, never throw them away.
In a very kind way.
You put them
in
a kind way.
And vice versa. I think that's essential.
Put them in a drawer, put them in, whoever you work with, ladies and gentlemen of the design, put those ideas that aren't working in a drawer, because do you know what? They'll come back, and they'll come back in a different time and a different way, and you'll be able to use them. But if someone says to you, that's crap, that's not good, is it? Because that just besmirches that idea. So that's what I think. You've got to trust the people around you in creative to be sort of kind and empathetic, and to, sometimes you do need steer, because that's just it is. It's very difficult when you have an idea. Everyone thinks their idea is the best idea, don't they, to start with? And then maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's about surrounding yourself with people who you trust. I trust you, Kerry Harrison.
There we go.
Implicit. Didn't expect you that on a Sunday, did you?
It's the nicest you've been to me for ages.
Oh, that's rude. That is.
And I think this leads in really wonderfully both of the sentiment behind what you both said there about sharing and share. The final theme that I just want to ask about. So October the 10th was Mental Health Awareness Day, and we've seen a lot of campaigns around keeping the conversation going this year. This year has been very isolating for many people. Have you had to learn new ways of sharing and opening up?
Yeah, I think going back to our event, we've had to take that online, which has been cool. We've had to find new ways of making it interesting when you're not, just in a Zoom room with lots of people. Yeah, and then personally doing stuff like online yoga has been really cool, like finding ways to interact with people that I'd normally be in a studio with, and doing stuff online, and like really on a really personal level, doing a quiz every Sunday with my like really good friends, and we all get together and do that. So sharing those kind of experiences where you wouldn't normally be able to, well, normally we'd go and see each other, but we can't, so we've created this thing every Sunday that we do, and it's always really lovely. So yeah, those are my ones.
Yeah, I would say that I think it was. I haven't seen Kerry Harrison physically since the 6th of March this year. And he said to me, "What's going to happen, Norts? Is there's going to be? I can't even work how many months it is now. 8 months are going to pass without seeing the person who you co-founded a business with. How do you think the business is going to fare in 8 months? You go, well, it's just not going to function." So again, but with a very broad and open mind, you can see that actually it's kind of reinvented. That it doesn't really. It's in many ways, it's been very kind of beneficial, not talking about business, but in terms of like being able to see the possibilities of what you can and can't do. So it's that. And I suppose the other thing for me that I've kind of learned from this time is the fact that, because obviously for a lot of time, one has been with one's family. I have 2 children and a wife. And if you think about the amount of time that people spend together in that thing, I found it kind of really nice to spend more time with people. Hitherto I wouldn't, because we'd have been, I'd have been traveling to work to Bristol. You spent more time with them, and so that's kind of helped appreciate. I think in a way that's kind of helped appreciate the people around you a lot more, not take granted. And also we probably had more conversations about the sorts of things about how we, when in this household, did people always say, "Oh, how are you feeling today?" That sort of thing. I'm not sure that was commonplace a year ago, whereas now it's almost like it's an everyday thing, really. And I think that's kind of nice that, I think we, as a family, because that's the person who I spent most time around the last 7 months, we're definitely much closer emotionally and understanding how other, because, a lot of times you don't necessarily know, you have to make judgments about how someone is without knowing it. And then but if you can get them to talk and that, it kind of helps. And again, if you can apply that in a broader sense, when I finally reveal myself to the world and interact in 2025, then that's got to be a better thing for yourself, but also for the people that you interact with. Owen.
Absolutely.
You and us, we can have. If you want a coffee any day, just come on, let's have a Zoom. Let's just do it. All the people. Come on. But
well, I was just about to say, I think it's been fascinating to listen to you guys, to talk to you. Thank you so much. We're pretty much spot on with time. So thank you for that. Well done. And I'm going to stop recording, but if you can just stay around for a couple of seconds, that'd be great. But thank you very much to Tiny Giant, to Norts and Kerry.
Thanks all.
Can't get it. Thank you.